Alright, I know the title sounds insane, like genuinely insane. It's one of those titles that if you saw it on YouTube, you'd probably assume it's clickbait. But unfortunately, this actually happened to me. This is one of those stories that has just been sitting in the back of my head, and I think if I don't talk about it, it's just gonna keep haunting me at 3 a.m. So here we are. This is the story of how I found out my girlfriend was actually a dude after months of dating. So for some context, this was last year. I was 19 and still pretty naive when it came to dating and women, stuff like that. And I'm not gonna lie, I was getting like no emotion with women. So I was in that phase where you're just telling yourself like, oh no, I'm totally fine being single. But I was also spam refreshing my Instagram DMs. And that's when I met Alyssa. That's not her real name, obviously, but let's just call her that for now. I met her in a coffee shop, which is pretty typical in a lot of romance stories, I guess you could say. And she was just sitting there at a small round table with her laptop open, looking like she was about to crash out over something on her computer. And I was just standing there waiting for my coffee, which, by the way, took so damn long. Like, I've been waiting for my Americano for literally like 30 minutes at this point. And I was wondering, like, what the hell are they doing? Anyway, eventually I decided, like, fuck it. I'll grow a pair and go talk to her, seeing as I'm waiting. So I went over to her and I asked her if the seat across from her was taken. And she said no. So I sat down and we just started talking. It wasn't anything crazy. It was just small stuff like where she was from, what she was working on. And we ended up talking for probably like 2 hours. 2 hours, which is crazy because normally I can't even hold a conversation for like more than a minute, to be honest. My conversational skills are pretty arse most of the time. But yeah, she was funny in this really dry, like subtle way. Like she'd say something under her breath and you'd miss it if you weren't paying attention. And it was just a really easygoing conversation. I felt like we really clicked on that first day that we met. So before we left, we made sure to exchange contact details and we agreed to meet up again. At first it was just coffee, then we did some movie dates. Then it was those late night drives where you don't really go anywhere, but somehow still feel like you did something meaningful. You know the vibe. And eventually it became kind of obvious that we were, kind of dating. Not officially at first. It was just that weird in-between phase where you're hanging out so much that you can't pretend it's platonic anymore. So one night, while we're sitting in my car outside her apartment, she just casually asked, like, so, are we a thing? And that caught me so off guard. I responded like a bit of an NPC, to be honest. But I was like, yeah, I think so, I guess. And that was pretty much it. I had a girlfriend, or technically a boyfriend, but I didn't know that at the time. But yeah, at the time that felt great because just 5 months earlier, I was complaining to a friend about how I was probably going to die alone. Alyssa was great, and I don't mean that in like a fake, I'm being polite because this story was weird, where I just mean she was genuinely one of the easiest people I'd ever been around. Like everything just felt really easy around her. She remembered tiny things about me, what kind of music I liked, or that I didn't like pickles, or that I always got quiet when I got stressed. It was just the little things. And she had this really calming presence. Like everything felt a little slower when she was around. Which is probably why what happened next was such a shock for me. We've been dating for about 4 months. 4 months of movie nights, 4 months of dumb inside jokes, 4 months of her stealing my hoodies and never giving them back. Nothing ever really felt off. There wasn't any crazy red flags that I could notice. But in hindsight, I do remember wondering why she'd left the toilet seat up a few times after using it. But at the time, I didn't really think much of it. For the most part, though, I didn't have a clue. It was just a normal relationship. Which is why when I found out, it was such a shock. It honestly just felt like a bad dream. So what happened was we were in her apartment sitting on her couch. It was late. We were watching some random Netflix show that neither of us were paying attention to be honest. Now at this point, it had been 5 months of us not really doing anything, if you know what I mean. So I leaned over. It was all going well. We started making out for a little bit. And then I started to reach down. And then she suddenly stopped me and pushed herself off me and went like super quiet. And then she looked at me and she said, "Can I tell you something without you freaking out?" Which is such a cursed sentence. Like, at this point, I was so confused. Like I was thinking, like, oh, like my first instinct was like, oh my god, was I too pushy, or did I do something wrong, or was I too early, or what? But I was like, okay, sure, what's up? And then she took a deep breath, like the kind of breath you take before jumping into freezing cold water, and she and then she said, "I'm trans." I don't think I've ever had a moment where my brain just like pause like that. I think I literally just said like, oh, which is like the least useful response ever looking back at it, but genuinely could not think of anything else to say. And she, or he, I guess, basically started explaining how they transitioned years ago. They normally tell people early, but they were scared to tell me because they didn't want to lose me or something. And at this point, I was just done. Like I was just going through so many different emotions. Like I was genuinely just starting to tweak. Like I had just invested over 5 months of my time into this chick that I really liked, only to find out that she or he was just actually a dude the whole time. It's not even like, I'm not even hating on anyone who's trans. Like if you want to do that, go ahead. But it's just that she never told me shit for over 5 months, which is the crazy part. Honestly, I don't know how I didn't find out sooner. I don't know how this went on for 5 months without me knowing. But yeah, after that, I basically just left and went home. And I think I sent her some message about like it not working out or something. But I basically just ghosted her and cut off all contact after that and just went on with my life. But that genuinely has to be one of the most traumatic experiences I've ever been through to this day. And yeah, that's the story, I guess. If you made it this far, thanks for listening to my traumatic experience. Make sure to like and sub for good luck to make sure this never happens to you. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next story.